Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Waking up for a little bit of an earlier Friday morning over here from Helsinki, Finland. Do want to be wishing you well on this end of the week. Another day of the $100 range of death and decay here. But there's actually plenty to talk about as Bitcoin did start to initiate some things on the medium-term time frames with that last daily total closure. Of course, another big focus today is going to be on traditional markets, as there are many very interesting things that I believe are about to set in for the next trading week. So this is all in preparation for the week to come. Assuming a few things here. Anyways, putting the emphasis on the Krown Trading application, which can be found at app.krowntrading.net, we do see that open interest actually reaching up to a level that we've never seen since mining the data for this. Not to say that it's never been up there. It's just we haven't seen it from our own venue, and that is a 2.2 billion marker. That is open interest going up about 100 million to almost 200 million over the last couple of days, as price action slowly but surely kind of slides down on the daily and continues the short-term time frame trend to the downside, which still need to see a break of the high-term time frame range in order to get a confident read on what the open interest is actually suggesting. But right now it is playing within the bounds of it, and it does still offer up a little bit more of a bearish look here as Bitcoin goes on. But at the end of the day, like I said, price action first, and still 8,900 to the downside and 9,900 to the upside essentially is what I'm looking for, with a lot of things in between. On top of that, we see that all the other top end metrics are more or less the same, more or less stock standard and steady. And yeah, even the fear and greed index moving around a little bit from a 43 to a 41. Bitcoin dominance holding steady at 62.5% as we head into the weekend times. I should also say that the sale is ending tonight, I believe at midnight Pacific time for the Americans out there. And you know, the same things that I've been saying before. Make sure that you watch the videos, accompany them. If you are interested in these programs, don't rush into it, as they're going to directly tell you kind of who they're for, who they're not for, and what to expect. And then it's up to you if that's something for you or not. You're an adult to make your own decisions. But I would say make sure that you have enough time to actually invest in these programs if you are the type of person who's going to potentially get into them to begin with, as the TA program and the options program especially are rather long, 35 hours plus long. I think the TA program might even be around 40 hours by this point, as I have added quite a bit of content over time. It's more like a legacy project at this point, as want to have something like that, and so I take quite a bit of pride in that. Anyways, less about me, more about you. What else do I want to say about that? Yes, so make sure that you have enough time. I think that's the biggest thing that I can say right now. And then of course watch the videos that accompany them. And then also understand that this sort of a journey does take quite a bit of time as well, and a lot of effort on your own behalf. These programs are not magic pills. They still require time and effort, typically to the tune of about a year to a year and a half, from what I've seen from people who come in from like pretty much a zero base or like a very low level. Some people obviously a lot faster than that. There's been a few people who get there in like 6 months. Someone more recently got there in like 10 months, I believe he said, which is pretty damn cool. But I don't think from what I've seen, that's not normal. Anyways, just don't want people to have false expectations. That's essentially what I'm getting at here. The Neophytes program, a lot more geared towards beginners and a lot less time intensive and a lot less financially committed, if you want to call it that. And so I'd say, if you are unsure, but you're really dead set on, on getting your feet wet into trading, that would be a good one to get in. However, I should also say it's very basic. It's very basic there. While we'll go over trading plans and, and everything that does matter, if you've been around for, 6 months plus and you've actually been putting in time and effort, you probably have outgrown the content there. For the subscriptions, we do have the Jewel on a 3-month discount, and that will be ending tonight as well. Although we will have something like this in the future, I believe, too. But for right now, same things apply here. Watch the video that accompanies it, and sort of my short little blurb for it would be, while it's a very powerful tool, while I absolutely love it, and it's really helps me out quite a bit. At the end of the day, if you're not already profitable, with your own risk management and position management strategies, it's not a magic pill. It will not manage risk for you. But it is, but I do quite like it. Anyways, and moving on to the partner tab right here, Morinfall himself, the creator of the app and actually the Jewel as well, will teach you how to code in PineScript, which is native to the TradingView platform. All right. That's enough. That's enough shilling for today, and I don't believe that. Yeah, and this is the last day of shilling. Awesome, man. Okay, let's go talk about some price analysis over here. We can start it off with Tesla today. I didn't really plan for this, but we can start off with Tesla. So same thing as far as what we were looking at for the last few days for Tesla. I do believe that the top is in. I do believe that we've seen a nice blow off right here, and just playing out a range between. We could actually raise this up for a low term time frame region between our base at about 1470-ish region and our declining highs coming in around 1550-ish region. And yes, this is creating a little bit of a descending triangle right here. You could certainly call it that. And it would imply a move somewhere down to this next level right here, right in the midst of this area, if I had to do a bad visualization of this. However, at the end of the day, I've seen every fucking pattern breakout every goddamn which way. And realistically, if it were to take out this last prior high right here, or especially even just tick above 1550, I would look for another move, another swipe back up, anywhere between 1600 to 1625-ish region. But I would feel quite what's the word that I'm looking for? Quite defined. No, I would be looking at this at, as a major top being put in, essentially as long as potentially, yes, that's the word that I'm looking for. Potentially a major long-term top being put in as long as this criteria is met by end of day today being Friday, and that is any sort of a closure below 1600. And I do believe that that's in the cards coming into next week. Doesn't mean that we're going to break down today, or it could be, but realistically, the setup is for next week, and I would actually be probably looking for another swipe to the bottom side of this 1470-ish region right here. But I don't think that it's going to break before, or at least if it is going to break, I'd probably be looking for it to happen next week, and we can talk about the triggers for that if and when we do get this confirmed. Well, we will get this confirmed later today at the market's close. But basically, just taking out the low side of this weekly dildo at 1431 would very likely confirm this as a major massive top, and we could talk about targets back down to 1200 and even $1,000 base, more medium and long term. How long does it take for that to happen? Probably a while, but overall, this should be very reminiscent for anyone who is around in Bitcoin in 2017. This is your traditional blow off fucking top. And typically it ends in tears, and you really can see that. And what I'd actually, and this is going to sound like I'm being a complete asshole right now, but I actually think that this is rather important and really enlightening as well. And you'll probably notice a lot of parallels. But go on to Reddit, Tesla, or like read social media venues like Reddit, like Twitter, where all the Tesla crowd is kind of like congregating, and then compare that to what you saw in 2017 in those similar social media venues. To what people were saying and how they were feeling. And you'll notice that more or less the human emotions that go through these sorts of things are the same, and you'll be able to identify this over time. Now, can I be wrong about this being a major top? Yeah, absolutely. But I believe that any sort of a closure below 1600 this week, and very likely it will be in play. And that's not to say that it's 100% guaranteed to work out. It's just it offers up a nice risk reward, and more importantly, a documentable and well-defined area to be managing something like that off of, which would be the 1650-ish area, kind of the open of this current weekly. So for that reason, I really like that chart, and because it has been kind of leading the traditional markets alongside Microsoft and Apple, I do think that it's very much relevant to keep an eye on. Going over to NASDAQ futures, same sort of thing here as well. I'd say any sort of a weekly closure below 10700 or 10750-ish region, and we have that same sort of potential in there as well. Remember that we did hit the target from early May on this inverted head and shoulders, pretty much to the T. I'm not saying that to sound arrogant, but it is that sometimes that TA bullshit actually works. That fucking hocus pocus shit actually works sometimes, huh? Also an algo-driven target as well from the fib extension here to the one spot 414 in a more serious tone. And while, I wouldn't necessarily be looking for it to like break down today, any sort of a closure, like I said, below about 10,700, and it is a possibility, yes, a potential coming into next week. And sort of the same thing here as well. If we take out the low side of this 10,358 tick to the downside, I would be looking for extension somewhere around the 10 simple on the weekly overall. Now let's go down to the lower term time frame. See how this one kind of ended out the night, and a very similar chart to Tesla. Actually, you can see that mostly the market kind of moves together as you see Bitcoin to altcoins, for example, and Bitcoin to a lesser extent, or to a macro extent, traditional markets. On a micro, well, you probably wish that Bitcoin was following traditional markets on the micro scale more recently, because everything else making new all-time fucking highs except for good old Orange coin. But the Fed printer go burr doesn't seem to help. It's like, what's the new narrative, man? Hey, we need some more hopium over here. I'm going on withdrawal. Looking at this right here, can we pop up short term back up to 10,700? Yeah, but overall, as long as we're playing out this range, I do look at this as likely a top being put in above 10,750. I don't necessarily just let go of my bearishness, but I would be looking for a retest of about 10,850 to 10,900 right here. And then we'll go from there. Above 10,900, or what exactly is this? Yeah, but above about 10,900. No, I don't believe that this is going to be a top anymore, and this is very likely just going to go on to new all-time highs after that. And this is going to be the market that never goes down. Which, fair enough, man. All you had to do is just buy NAS, and that's it, man. It's that easy. It's that fucking easy. No, just kidding. There's nothing easy about trading. But this chart is rather interesting nonetheless. So looking at the daily right here, do we have any sort of divergences to be aware of? Yes, we do, and I believe that we've actually played out the easy move from that already to the 21, and the next sort of daily little closure below, let's call it 10,500, and we actually do have a regular head and shoulders kind of in the cards here. It's not perfect, but I'm curious how it would work out. It essentially kind of follows the same sort of measured move as we see on the lower term time frame descending triangle that's forming that we see on Tesla, and kind of to a lesser extent on Nasdaq as well. But I do like the confluence here if this one does break down. So what I can say is a daily little closure below. What is this, 10,450-ish region, then yes, I would extend targets down to a little bit more of a more medium-term support into this liquid zone territory right here at about 10,100-ish region, which I do like for kind of like a nice round even number, and also the prior breakout that we saw in late-ish June, we'll call it. 22nd of June, so almost a month ago actually, and I would be looking for a bounce off that area as well. So again, there's a trigger to both sides. Do I think that we see the resolution today? Probably not, but assuming that NAS closes below that 10,700 number next week, it will very likely be a possibility, and I would say that is probably what I'd be looking for overall. That should be probably around the weekly 10 simple. No, well, yes, it will get up there because it will travel probably about $200 on this next tick. That's what we did from the last couple of weeks ticks, from 9,700 to 9,900. So another couple $100 would actually put it right smack dab at 10,100. So yes, we do have the good confluence there, and that's what we'll be looking for. Again, if that setup condition is met, we don't really have that right now. Today, I think is going to be more or less a boring day. Let's go check out Microsoft as well. This Krown's traditional cave now. Fuck off, cryptocurrency boys. Just kidding. Come on, boy. So fucking dumb. So fucking dumb. But we actually had a really good conversation about this in the program Discord yesterday, about like gang-like mentalities around trading assets and whatnot. It was really good conversation. So I just want to say massive thank you to all who are participating there, because it's one of those things. We tend to create these romantic situations and ideas with these inanimate assets and objects like Bitcoin and like Tesla too. I mean, like anything really. And people tend to fall in love with these things, creating like this identity from it, and then that makes it really hard to trade an asset that you're on one hand in love with, and on another hand, if you have a logical mind, sometimes doesn't necessarily look all that great. Like Microsoft right now, we do have a major potential bearish divergence in play on the weekly. This will be confirmed if we close anywhere below 209, and I would look for a short-term move to the 10 simple right around 195-ish region, and probably a more medium-term move towards a 21 at 186, retest the prior high as well. This is all going to come along the side of daily divergence as well, I believe. Yes, indeed. We have 1, 2, 3 stabs almost right there, but we've kind of already played out the easy move from that, and a very similar chart here to what we see on Tesla, to what we see on NAS, to what we will see on Apple as well. But going down to the hourly, this one's a little bit more of a runaway here. with also pretty damn well-defined areas as well. So I'd say for a short-term time frame, like 202 is where I'd be looking towards. Break below there, and I'll target another move down to like mid 190s. But for right now, going into the weekend, I'd be looking at this as very likely a top as long as this weekly closes below. Let's call it 208 and a half. 208 and a half. And then coming into next week, we have that same sort of potential. Could also just be using not yesterday's, but Wednesday's. Yeah, Wednesday's high. As kind of like a risk management point for getting unbearish. Once again, technically speaking, it is still right in the 21 right here. It does look a little bit heavy to me. So overall, I'd actually be looking for the pullback to emerge. Daily Jewel will be lining up, or if it hasn't already. I don't necessarily love that signal right there, but it is showing that it is losing momentum. Or at least it's, well, I don't know if momentum is the right word for that, but it certainly is losing its luster. So whether it gets another spike to the upside or not is more or less a question that I believe will be answered probably next week. Seeing how we resolve this range, which is the same range essentially, just using the high of this current week around 210 region and the low of these last few spikes to the downside at 202. Yeah, so for a very low term time frame trade, that's how I'd be looking at it right there. So fair enough. I don't really have an opinion on whether it's ready to break down today or not. I'd say probably unlikely. It's really a potential coming into next week though. That's what I'd be holding out for right here. Of course, it's not financial advice, and I'm not a financial advisor to never do anything like that. But let's also check out very quickly Apple. This one does not look as nasty as the other ones, to be fair. Actually, not as nasty as at all. It does have the same sort of bearish divergence present on the daily. And that would have a target somewhere down around 369? 369-ish region. And the weekly, I see the same sort of potential here as well. Could it potentially make bearish divergence? Yes, it needs to confirm this is a local high. How do we do that? Well, do we have to close here today, here or lower, anywhere below like 390-ish region is potential, and then next week come out and take out the low side of this, confirms as a doji dodo and a sign of indecision, and in this case, with continuation, reversal confirmed. Probably initiating a move down towards the mid 350s is where I'd be looking towards overall. But again, coming into next week, only if those conditions are met by today's daily total closure. All right, let's go check out also Japan's trading for the day. They are actually selling off a little bit off the open, coming back down to low term timeframe supports. Sometimes you do see Japan lead. In fact, it used to be kind of a trend in the past, but we don't really see that here. I do think that Japan has some downside, but I actually think that it's just catching up to U.S. markets down to like 22,475 region. Still this is actually rather constructive here, so you can't really hate that. Oh, and that reminds me, you should probably check out E-mini futures for SPY, because these charts look very, very similar right here. And yeah, E-mini futures for SPY is, same thing, potentially in there, not as obvious as NAS. Are we going to get some rotations right now? Well, we should actually probably look at triple Qs. Oh man, I got to add some new tickers here, baby. Got to add some new tickers, but an easy trade to manage nonetheless. Above what is this, 323? 323, and I'm looking for a move up to 330-ish, 333 region. However, as long as we're below there, does it top out with the rest of the market, or are we going to go into rotations and this one gets a chance to go up? Well, I wouldn't mind a test back down to 3175 in the interim. Anyways, looking at the very low term timeframes, like an hourly does look like it's going to give another stab to the top side resistance, but still, I'd rather just wait for the weekly to close. This one's not as obvious of a chart, and yeah, not as obvious as a chart. Let's go check out triple Qs. Triple Qs, pretty nasty close yesterday too. Same sort of thing here. Any sort of a close below 263, and I'll be looking at this potential top coming into next week. Same sort of bearish divergence present as well, or potentially present, I should say. Not confirmed as of just yet. Same thing on the daily here too. Any sort of a closure below the 21 at 252, and I'd be looking for extensions down to our last sort of base at low 240s, we'll call it. Looks about right to me. Alrighty, time for some Bitcoin. All right, you Bitcoin bastards. We're 20 minutes into this video. God damn, this is beautiful. And I've even said a goddamn word about Bitcoin. Here's my word about Bitcoin. go fuck yourself. Just kidding. No, I love Bitcoin. Bitcoin's great, and Bitcoin, if I could marry it, then I would. And Bitcoin's my Lord and Savior, and I will do everything to hodl it till the day that I die. I'll never spend it. I promise. I promise. I promise. I promise. I'll be a good boy. Just please go up. I love this thing. I love this thing that people say on crypto Twitter, like, if you stuck around for the last 3 years of down, then you deserve a bull market. That's right. You deserve it because the world is fair and you get rewarded for having very illogical behaviors. I would like to understand that mentality. If someone is actually that person, I would like to speak with you. And I sincerely mean that. Alrighty. I don't know, man. It looks like another lower high to me. Same things that go in here that we've been saying for a while. It's born at it's fucking a range of boredom, really. Still need to see a daily total closure below 9,000-ish region. We could probably move it up to now. It's around the 236, cyan 89 on the daily coming in around that region as well. And that's your last low. So we have multiple things lining up there. It would not only be a continuation point, but also a break of a major fib, also a break of structure, and also a break of a major horizontal as well, and a major moving average. So a lot of things coming into confluence there. And yes, if we do break that area, I would look for a quick move down here to this liquid zone right around 8550 to 8600-ish region. That's also around the daily 200 simple and 200 exponential moving average. Notice how the liquid zone is actually going to naturally encompass both of these things as they start to meet up with it. Quite nice there. However, while I would be looking for a bounce off that region, I would not. I would be looking for a bounce off this region. I would interpret it at that bounce as likely to get sold into as long as we're below 9,000, and we'll just go range from range there with a target of somewhere down around here in the upper 7,000s, low 8,000s, around the 382. Kind of a big blue box right here. I don't really have a specific. It's a $200 range. It's rather big, but because it is a long-term area, I do want to be a little bit more on the conservative side with something like that, and I would expect another bounce there as well. Expect bad word to have, but the point that I'm trying to make is that I'd just be going level by level with special attention to the major areas, as we do see that this area is not just a major fib, but also from a historical standpoint, major breakouts and breakdowns coming in from that low 8,000 and high $7,000 number right here. Major $3,000 move spun off right there, major meltdown right here from 8 to 4, major breakout right here from 8 to 10. Same thing both ways. So I would be respectful of that. If that area does fail, then I'd look further south towards 7,500. Does that mean that Bitcoin's guaranteed to break to the downside? Fuck no. There's no guarantees in any of this. However, as long as Bitcoin's below 9,450, I see no reason at all whatsoever to be bullish on even a medium-term time frame range. Now, if Bitcoin does take out 9450-ish region, which is our last kind of local high on as high of a time frame as a daily right here, then yes, I would look for a move back up to 9700-ish region. And then at that point, I'm curious if this is still in the cards here. Let's go check on the 3-day. The 3-day is actually going to lose the hidden bullish divergence. Yeah. No, it can still hold in here. So yes, the 3-day hidden bullish divergence could still potentially work out, but it would really need to. The only way that that's going to get confirmed is we move back above 9450-ish region. Or whatever the high of this dildo is right here, which is 94.75. So pretty much right around that area to begin with. And then, yes, I wouldn't just target 9,700. I'll target this blue box here at about 9,900 to 10,000. And then you'll probably hear me get rather bullish if Bitcoin were to work its way back up towards there. I know a lot of people right now are looking at like the 2-day or the 3-day golden cross. I don't care about simple moving average crosses for the most part. Can it play out? Yep. Does 2 iterations in the past make it a dependable edge for myself? No, not really. I'd rather go off of price action here rather than just high-term time frame regions like that, high-term time frame signals like that are not accompanied by price action. Price action right here is the more important thing, as we are just too close to resolution of this range. When you do see that historical volatility percentile is this low, we can explode at any given moment in time. And so when you're closer to the bottom side resolution of a long-term formation, well, That's going to naturally be the more likely thing to happen. It also follows for the for vice versa to the upside, but that resolution is not had until again 9,900 or 10,000, same areas that we've been looking at for 3 months now, I guess. So I wouldn't obviously it'd be a lot more easier for both myself and I'm sure a lot of other people out there, as it doesn't necessarily take brains to make money in a bull market, but until that happens, this is looking a lot more like a top than it is a reaccumulation. Could still make it out, until Bitcoin really breaks the area that we just spoke about at 8,950 to 9,000ish region to the downside. It's still in the cards. Yes, it's still very much in the cards. But looking at traditional markets with potential major tops being put in place, really do have to think about how that affects Bitcoin if Bitcoin has an 11-year history now on the macro playing with their trend, playing in the same direction as their trend, so to speak. Looking at the weekly as well for perspective, we will be closing the CMEs later today at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to actually confirm the weekly Stokes below the critical zone. Extremely likely. I don't have a tool to know which price action would be needed to get them back above. I would imagine it's probably around 9,800 if anything. If we go back to spot price action, we can probably we could maybe do something like this. Might help. Yeah, it'd be about 9,850ish region, but that doesn't necessarily even suggest how to get back above the critical zone. I suppose at this point, yeah, it would, because it would kind of have to curl back around, but now I'm getting way too ahead of myself. The point that I want to make is that anytime that we've had a signal like this where the weekly Stokes get above the critical zone and then come back down below the critical zone while crossing down at the same time, that's when Bitcoin plays out typically it's big pullbacks, if you want to call them that, or crashes if you are not, if you, I don't know, what do you call 70% down? What do you call this? Just a pullback, bro. Realistically, that obviously took half a year to a year to happen after that. So is it really reasonable to include that in? No, but I do think that this one is 45% pullback right here, although not super exact, because I'm taking a really high wick. I'm really giving it a little bit too much on top of that. Maybe I'd take its tuna out and use just bodies, of which we'd have about a 32% pullback within a couple months, and then extend another 10% down over time. If we go back a little bit further than that to 2016 to 2018, you can see several examples right here, of which I'll briefly go through because we do this every fucking day. And yeah, probably already know where I'm going with this, but 25% down right there. I'm just going to use bodies on these ones. Although if I use wicks, it'd probably be an average of 35%. But so far, anywhere between about 25% to 35% if we're using bodies rather than wicks. 25% right there. 20% right there. It sounds a lot better when you do it this way, and 25.5% right there. So, taking that off of what Bitcoin's done thus far, keeping it consistent, I'm curious what that would be like if we were to shave off 25% right here. Well, that would put Bitcoin in the mid 7,000s, mid to upper 7,000s. If we were to shave off 35%, that would put Bitcoin in the low 7,000s, I believe. So those numbers probably do line up with the same things that we were speaking about earlier. If you remember the 0.5 retracement at 7,500ish region, and sort of the measure move from the Wyckoff distribution top, if Bitcoin does initiate the downside into the upper 7,000s to low 8,000s dollar target. So all those things do work together. Again, it's not set in stone that Bitcoin's going to break down, but I would say that looking at the Challenger bands right here with a few consecutive closes, two consecutive closes below the median Challenger band right here, the 20 simple. Well, we did get our move down to the $9,000 region, and we did bounce of it. It's essentially what we were saying yesterday. But I don't know how much more I trust it if it comes down and swipes it a second or third time. Again, same things would essentially apply. I mean, that is my personal trading rule. I don't assume something's going to break that hasn't already broken. That's just one of the ways that I trade. It doesn't mean that you have to trade that same way as well. It just seems to work for me. But I would say that it's not going to look all that hot. It's not going to look like the picture of health and fitness here. And the Challenger bands are rather tight as well. I mean, if we go over to the BB dubs, how many times in history have we even been this contracted on the Challenger bands? I think we have one in October 2018, a few times in the switch up from 2015 to 2016 right here, and then January 2013, going way back, 7-8 years. So realistically, we're looking at resolution on this very, 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 very soon. Volume signature on this is extremely mature. Apex coming in. Hey, that's a different, that's providing a different look than what I see on this one. Hold on, let's make sure. Yeah, this is the one that I've been following, and I have an apex at like July 22nd-ish region, which would be in the next 5 days, is when it's going to actually, an apex coming in there. But resolution can happen once it's like 75% full, which has been for the last week and a half. So what can happen is, if it does not decide on a direction by then, which is less than a week from now, then likely something new will come about, and we'll have to go back into normality. So, if bulls do pull through here, it probably just looks like some more sideways. If anything, if bulls can just pull this sideways without breaking down below the critical levels that we were speaking about earlier, then I think that potential stays in the cards. But for right now, with Trollinger bands once again providing a little bit more of a downside bias, what do we see on daily MACD? We actually see MACD crossing to the downside, and histogram going negative once again. And this is all coming along the side of both hidden bearish divergence on the daily histogram between this point and this point, also more appropriately shown on the weekly between February high at 10,000 and our more recent high at just under 10,000, which has that played out or not yet? We have about 15% down, I think, from that top to where we are right now. Yeah, 15% down. You could argue that that's played out, but usually I want to see a move back to around the 20 simple, at the very least the 10 simple, and I don't, where is the 10 simple? Oh yeah, we have made it down to the 10 simple for sure. It's actually above Bitcoin right now at 9,300-ish region. So fair enough. You could make that argument, but typically you will look for a move down around that region. And where does it happen to be? Happens to be right smack dab in the middle of that high 7,000 to low $8,000 target that we were speaking about earlier as well. Now, when looking at MACD right here, the MACD cross, we can, has Bitcoin broken any major levels on price action? No. Does that matter the most to me? Yes. Is there something to make a mountain out of a molehill here if I'm going to do analysis on the internet just to talk about something? Sure. And we'll do it right now. Bitcoin also did, breaking below the 20 simple on the Trollinger bands while momentum turns down on the daily MACD histogram as well, would suggest that, the probabilities are going to very much be erred on the side of a downside resolution here. Also, Stoke RSI on the same side as well. Fair enough. I don't really care for that indicator, but it is, it is interesting. Typically, when you do see those things on the same side, you will see follow through on price action as well. Not always, but just gearing the odds a little bit more and more in favor of that resolution. Let me make sure we're cool on time. Yeah, 32 minutes in here. And we can probably also look at probabilities at this point as well. So I'm going to go back down to the lower term timeframes on Bitcoin. Actually, before we look at probabilities, let's just go to the lower term timeframes on Bitcoin and check this out. So all major moving averages on the 4 hour starting to display out once again after rejecting reversing the trend essentially on a 4 hour right here, which a little bit nasty. And as you can see, Bitcoin getting a little bit of a slump yesterday to our downside target of 9,000, also putting in and potentially confirming in the early morning hours yet again another lower high right here. So how would that be confirmed? Well, if we take out what is this 90.85 tick right here? Yeah, 90.85 on GDAX. Then yes, this looks like another lower high and looks like we're in the process of trending on the 4 hour still. So where's the downside target if that is essentially confirmed? Well, same area as yesterday, 9,000. However, if Bitcoin does on this 4 hour total time frame close below, let's call it whatever this closing low is right here, I'd like to be more conservative on a low time frame like this, and I'd say 8,900 rather than 8,930, what it's printing right there. But if a 4 hour does close below there, I would consider this also broken to the downside with all the downside targets, available. I'd feel a lot better waiting for a 12 hour or a daily, but fair enough. Can't always be that patient, I suppose. 4 hour momentum oscillators are actually turning back up right now, but let's see what would be needed for price action to close above or below buy in order to get that continuation. And what do you know? 4 hour momentum turns back to the downside with any sort of a closure below 90.50. That is essentially your last, potential low right here as well. So not only would we be confirming continuation as a lower high, but also continuation below this point as well, while turning momentum down at the same time. see how these things work together typically. So this one's going to be closing in 2 hours and 27 minutes and 54 seconds. So we will actually get confirmation on this and clarity on the situation rather soon. I want to see how this flows on over into the 3 hour. 3 hour showing the same thing, looking a little bit more like a local high here as well. And 3 hour kind of meeting the same sort of trend line that we have on the 4 hour as well. Well, a little bit more space to fill out here. I think I'm just drawing. I'm seeing some Jesus toast on that one, so I'll call myself out. But momentum turns back to the downside below 90.80. So it's all very close right now. But technically speaking, as is, Bitcoin is would remain in upside posture for the very short term timeframes. 2 hours showing 91.08. And that's closing in 27 minutes and 16 seconds. So by the time that I upload this video, we will know that one. And if it does turn to the downside, that will be the next sort of domino to fall, I suppose. And hourly already turning down, and will remain to the downside as long as we're below 91.30. So you can see all these kind of working together, and if I had to say on the lower term timeframes, Bitcoin does look like it's trending, and if it is trending here, then very likely another test of $9,000 region. Does 9,000 hold again? I'll let price action speak for itself. I don't want to put my opinion on that. It's irrelevant what my opinion is. Anyways, looking at the 10 hour, 91.20 would be the area. And let's look at the 12 hour as well. Yeah, 12 hours is very interesting here too. So 12 hour stocks are rather low, and I'm sure that a lot of people are probably chomping at the bit to get into something like that. But this is going to be a great lesson, potentially not front running signals before they're confirmed. And this is why you'll find out that I'm a very conservative trader when it comes to taking those sorts of things and assuming things before they actually happen. And this one will remain to the downside as far as momentum goes, as long as Bitcoin is closing below 91.40-ish region. So same thing here as well. 12 hour 200 exponential 12 hour 200 exponential moving average and 200 simple coming in right around that 8900-ish region. So should I be more conservative based off the 12 hour? Maybe yes. I don't see any divergences present on 12 hour RSI. Don't see anything on the Joule. Historical volatility percentile is incredibly crushed and been contracting all the way since, of course, March. Like this is winding up for a big bad move, man. Big bad move. In the daily, of course, as well. Is there any divergences here to be found? No, I don't see anything. Daily momentum is going to remain to the downside. We saw the rejection from the bullish control zone a few days ago and continuing to the downside. And guess what? Momentum will remain to the downside as long as Bitcoin is closing dailies below 9,300, which 9,300, I believe, actually 9,300 is no longer even the short-term time frame last lower high, because potentially, well, technically, yes, it still is actually. But assuming that this does get another move to the downside here, then this will be our next lower high at 9150-ish region on the very low term time frame. So it's naturally just kind of gliding down, and yes, the probabilities and my bias boner would be angled to the downside here, especially as long as Bitcoin's below 9,300 for the short term, for the short terms. And for the long term, not even long term, but 12 hour and daily charts, as long as you're below about 9450-ish region, this lower high right here. Again, this is not to say that Bitcoin can't flip back around. It's not to say that Bitcoin can't find its footing here. Maybe put a few more wicks into this $9,000 area, and then flip back around. But my bias is that that's just going to be a continuation of this lower high and lower low trend over the last couple months until we get something different confirmed, which at this point there's just no change in that until Bitcoin gets back above 9450-ish region. And that's really the crux of my message today, I suppose. I think we should spend a little bit more time looking at CMEs here, just because CMEs will be closing the week out today. And what do you know? Bitcoin will remain in a downside momentum posture for the daily. And by the way, also rejecting and getting out of even the bearish control zone there, as long as we're closing below 9200-ish region, which is essentially another continuation point as well. And I think this chart's just easier to read here and would have a natural target down to about 8950-ish region, which we see a little bit less than $50 price premium on CME versus spot. So I put spot somewhere down around 8900-ish region. Interesting. And also remember, following up on the Jewel sell signal from literally like a month ago, more than a month ago, we got one in June 9th. It looks like right here. There's another continuation right here, and then a pretty damn good continuation confirmed. What looks, or it looks like it was confirmed last night. I do believe that it has been confirmed, and everything else kind of turning down at the same time. I would say that that's likely to play out. Do we have any sort of hidden bullish divergence potentially in play here? Potentially. Well, actually, no, because this low is coming in at the same place. So no, not really. Not really, unless if it's going to look really fucking ugly. No, I don't think so. If you have to squint your eyes to make an excuse for it, probably not the right thing to be doing. So yeah, let's go take a look at the weekly here as well. The weekly for CMEs has been a lot more obviously bearish than spot price action over the last, since like about 3 weeks ago, since we started to lose a 10 simple right here. Spot price action actually closed above the 10 simple last week, whereas CME closed below and is working on a consecutive closure below as it gets a negative slope, which I do not like. And that's as momentum also has turned down at the same time. Weekly Jewel could actually be okay. So if there is one thing that's working in the Bulaw's favors, that would be it. But other than that, looks to me like CME chart is actually very similar to spot price action right now, and that kind of makes sense because the premiums are pretty much dissipated. As the premium perhaps turns into a discount at some point. Well, maybe getting a little bit way too ahead of myself now. Let's go check out Mr. Buterol. I haven't done this in a while, even though I really should, because he was kind of leading the market to the upside for a while too. Looks to be another retest towards 229.5 region, kind of the same area as $9,000 or 8,900 for Bitcoin. Do I think that's going to break on the next swipe? I don't, probably not. No, probably gets another short-term bounce, but it doesn't look, having a rejection here does not look good. Checking out the weekly. The weekly still looks potentially healthy though. Can't hate this. Still have your higher low in place right here, so I would, I would be a little bit more lenient on the weekly here. The weekly can still flop around. However, here's one great way to completely fuck that. Take out 22nd of June's low at 216, and then I'd be looking for moves back down to 210 and probably beyond to the upper 180s over time. But for right now, could you still see this in a bullish light? Yeah, absolutely. Actually, in fact, it still looks, I'd say, pretty damn good. One of the better charts in the more immediate term timeframes. Obviously, an asset that goes down over 3 fucking years is not the most healthy of all time. No, that's a great chart until you do this. Fuck. Thought I was going to yell now, didn't you? I'm trying to be a better neighbor. What else do we want to check out? Have I bored you enough yet? It's already 40-minute long video. Let's go check out Ripples. No one's listening by now anyways, so we can talk some shit, baby. Ripple me nipples. Death cross on the weekly. Getting rejected by the 21x moving average. Long-term downtrend going all the way back to January 2018. I don't know, man. Fuck! But surely Stellar is the one that's going to be doing well, and actually it is. And we actually have liked this chart for a little bit of time too. As much as as much as it's fun to talk shit, this is, well, I can't really be bearish off that. It looks good. Let's see what EOS is looking like. Oh no, is that another rejection? Neo, save me. Give me that red pill in the form of a red dildo, baby. Tron Cash, long-term downtrend, but similar to Ethereum, you can still kind of make you could still kind of see it in potentially continuation light here. Ethereum looks a lot more a lot better overall, but they both consolidate at a high level alongside major moving averages. That can be seen as bullish actually. GBDC, we have weekly continuation to the downside actually after rejection of the 10 simple. Weekly GBDC looks like it wants to head back down to 845 region coming into next week. What about Cardano versus Bitcoin? Still looks okay. Daily does look toppy though. I stick with my medium term time frame top call yesterday. I do believe that this one's coming back down to 1200 satoshis. Long term, I'm neither. long term, I don't have anything to say about it. I don't know. But short and medium term, I do think down to that level, and I'd be looking for a bounce there. Link, how's Link doing at the end of the week? Do we have any sort of divergences to be aware of right now? No, still not in play there. Maybe another high gets put in. Yeah, Link still looks good. I'd wait for the weekly closure here. If you're playing this one, if you're trading this one, does it look a little bit extended? Maybe, yeah. Does it look like it's had a pretty phenomenal run? Yeah, absolutely. Does it look like it could have more? It depends how we close this weekly. I'd want to see where we are on Sunday, but any sort of a close here or higher, and it doesn't really look long term. I'm not bearish off something that's in a long term uptrend like this. We'll see how the weekly ends, though. We'll see how that happens. As this one, if there's anything that's likely to do something different than Bitcoin, I suppose if history is anything to go off of, then it'd be Link, yes. So this one can still look pretty damn good. What about gold? What's gold looking like? Ooh, gold's not having the strongest weekly closure here. Yeah, it kind of lost its luster yesterday as well. I would have been bullish on this yesterday. I would say that this one's looking a lot more toppy today. At least short term, I'd be looking down to 1780-ish region. And then after that, I want to see how the weekly closes before I say anything else. But, could we be in for a nice retracement here alongside most major markets? Yeah, could be. I'd want to see the weekly closure before saying something like that. But I do think short term, back down to that level, yes. What about Mrs. Litecoin really quick? Alrighty, Charlie Lee in the car. Do you have anything else? Maybe some Dow Jones. It looks like the same chart as SPY. What about Dixie? Dixie getting another bounce off the 200x Benjamin average. I believe that's what we were looking for coming into this week. However, the question for me is this medium term bearish, or should I be looking for a low here? I don't know, because there's a major degree of error all the way down to like $93.50 if this area does fail. But long term, super macro, I'd actually be quite bullish on this. But that's we're talking like years. Let's go look at probabilities. Let's do some of that. Let's do some of that maths and let's see what we got. Okay, so first things first, let's define our ranges. So could I use 9,300? Yes. Do I think that 9,300 is as relevant to 9,450? No, I don't. I think 9,450 is still the area to beat to the upside. I just can't be bullish on a chart that's in a daily downtrend until that condition is met. By the same token, to the downside, continuation point is below 9,000 on a daily closure. I will be more conservative with that one and say 8,950, and we'll go check out the probabilities right now. Is it the same shit as yesterday? Oh, yes, it is, motherfucker. Yes, it goddamn is. Sorry, I shouldn't be using the Lord's name in vain. And I should also say that, if you are new here and if my language does offend you in some ways, it's just understand that it's not intended to offend. So, apologies if it does come off like that, but it's not intentional. Anyways, looking at the daily right here, you'll notice if you are watching these last 3 days of videos, it's actually very, very interesting. The probabilities were once on the favor of the upside resolution for this same range 2 days ago. Yesterday, it started to flip very ever so slightly in the favor of the downside, and now it is actually rather downside favored of 37.33% versus 17.44% to the upside. And that's on a daily, on a 12-hour. Speaking towards the next 12-hour closure, we do see 10.5% probability to the upside above 94.50 versus 33% to the downside. Now, remember, these areas are not equal to each other. And what I mean by that is that the downside resolution of this, if this condition is met, is what I would consider a long-term trade. I'd be looking for a move down at the very least to 8,500, but very likely, upper 7,000, low 8,000. Whereas the upside resolution of this above 94.50 really only speaks towards a medium-term time frame move towards 9,700-ish region. Now, that obviously, as we showed earlier, likely does initiate some things further down the stream with the 3-day hidden bullish divergence, which likely brings things back up to the top side of the range, which then, this looks a lot more like accumulation and kind of hard to be bearish off that. It'd actually be rather bullish. We could talk about targets towards 11,000 and beyond. But for right now, when things are a lot closer to the downside resolution, I think that's just a more appropriate thing to be talking about. 12-hour Bally and Pigs Moms is still downside angled, although maybe losing a little bit of its luster. Daily looks like it's actually curling back a little bit as well. So very interesting. And do we have divergence here between these last three? hard to tell. Yeah, I suppose yes. Be very man. That is a very weird signature, but yeah, I think so. Let's also check that. Oh, I was looking at futures, by the way, not current. So we should actually recheck this with current. But I should also denote that the rings, the slopes, do have a negative slope on the daily. On the 12-hour, it's actually upside slope. So fair enough. Let's put this on current bars. See if that changes anything. A little bit under 14% versus 26.5%. To the downside. Daily shows 40% versus 33% to the downside. Okay, interesting, very interesting. But still, still downside angled. Not as aggressive as futures, obviously. Anyways, I think it's time for me to start to wrap up this video. It's already almost an hour long, and probably no one's listening by now. So it's just me, just me and my camera and my microphone. Still the same areas. Enlightening. 9,000 to the, or let's call it 89.50 to the downside on a 12-hour daily, above 94.50, and yeah, looking for moves up here. But anything within this range, I still look at this as likely having a downside buy. So if Bitcoin pops back above 9,300, I think that would loosen the hold quite a bit, but proof not promises. Yeah, proof not promises. That's what I need to see. Anyways, I'm going to be signing off now. I want to wish you well once again. Take care, and until next time.